152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yo. Welcome in, golf fans. It's American Express Week. My name's Joe Idoni. This is Preferred Lines. Welcome to the show. If you're coming back, if you're a seasoned veteran in the Preferred Line streets, we appreciate you, as always, for checking out the show. If you are new, thank you for stopping by. I hope that you enjoy it. This is a golf betting show. I'm going to bring a good friend of mine along in a minute. We'll do a brief course preview for the American Express. We will we'll talk best bets. We'll go through the odds boards, all that kind of good stuff here in just a few minutes. Thrilled to be supported once again by my boys over at the Fantasy Golf Pod. As always, the Golf Guys program goes live Wednesdays at 5:20. Josh, Chad, Eric, all the guys are there. Appreciate the boys over at Fantasy Golf Pod. Also, got to mention, doing some work on the Discord side with my guys, the Tour Junkies. Your boy is hot in the streets coming out in Discord. 7-0 on the head-to-head matchup picks. Right now, have yet to lose a single matchup. The top 40s were crushing as well. $2 per week. Go ahead and sign up over there in the Nut Hut. Here's what we got on tap for tonight. We're going to bring him in. I'm going to let him handle the course preview, go through the odds boards, best bets, get you out of here in time for a little bit more Monday Night Football. So now, welcome to the show. He's actually a really, really good writer, provides an excellent course preview on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, co-host of the Golf Gambling Podcast. Welcome to Preferred Lines, Steve Shermer. What's up, dude?
Not much, man. Good to be on. I don't know if I'm happy to talk about the AMEX. I think we kind of talked a little bit before the show about how this tournament can be a little annoying. And even the guy who loves to dig into the golf architecture and break down the course like that. There's a lot of things that kind of annoy me about this tournament too. So, but I'm here to break it down with you. Hopefully get some winners and we'll see what happens.
We appreciate, I appreciate you coming on this week. We'll talk through it. But first, I got to know, the people need to know, Steve Shermer, what's your burner?
What's my burner?
Are you on Twitter? What's the burner account, Steve? We know you're on there.
People thought that I was the man behind the Golf Gambling Podcast official Twitter account. It's not. It's our guy Cameron Kerr. He does all our social media. He's great. But no, I am still hanging on. One of the few that is still Twitterless. I kind of like that little bubble. I like having like my own little inner circle. You're in that inner circle. If you want to be able to get to me, you know how to get to me. But it's nice too that I kind of can just focus every single week and not look at some of like what the narratives are going on. Like I kind of just know the courses. I can see what's going on as far as like how guys are trending, who the fits are. Because, I my co-host, who is constantly on Twitter, he will send me usually at about 1 a.m. after about 5 or 6 gin and tonics, just something that someone says. And it can either be, just easily, debunked, or might not be irrelevant, or it might give him like a little idea that makes him go down a rabbit hole, which might be totally wrong. Like I like getting the noise, getting it out, and just it keeps me focused. And what it does too, that if especially with outrights and betting. Like, I mean, DFS is a different animal. You want to know what guys are on. But like, if you like a guy pre-tournament, like just for the odds standpoint, it shouldn't really matter what everybody else is betting online. I think everybody as a golf gambling community is getting smarter in general. So it seems like there's more community wins. Maybe it's because there's more of us, but I think we're also just getting a lot smarter as far as finding the stuff that matters, breaking down the golf courses well, so what matters. And I think we're just betting a little smarter.
Yeah, the course breakdowns and the dive into analytics has really expanded things, and I think a lot of people are on a similar sort of group think. Before we start on AMEX, let's talk a little bit about what we saw at the Sony. Siwoo Kim was fantastic. I had a Hayden Buckley ticket that I was sweating out, but it's hard not to love Siwoo Kim. I mean, I think that there's something that can be said about a guy just absolutely going for it in contention and playing uber aggressive to the max, and it's now gotten him 4 career wins. Do you consider that, like, is that a tournament that Siwoo won, or did you feel like Buckley lost it?
I mean, I think Siwoo took it from him.
Yeah.
I mean, Siwoo came out firing hot. What he birdie, like his first 3 holes.
Yes.
And then, I mean, he had that amazing chip in on 17. I mean, listen, Buckley, you kind of could see there was a little bit of a letdown coming because he was so molten hot with the putter on Friday. And then the ball striking on Saturday was kind of just as an unsustainable clip. And, it's a new situation for him. But I think overall, I think he played fine. It didn't seem like he made too many mistakes, I think, on Sunday. I mean, the Giants game was on during most of the coverage. So most of my attention was on my favorite team and our new franchise quarterback, Daniel Jones, who's going to get probably 120 million guaranteed now, that I can't believe I'm even saying that I'm happy with, because a month ago I was not. But I mean, listen, I was kind of with you with Buckley. I only had a positional on him, but he lived up kind of my expectations. A lot of what I was looking for at while I was with them growing up the rough a little bit to make it a little tougher. I thought, basically being a really good driver of the golf ball was going to help you. And that's Buckley. I mean, I made a note on my show that he hadn't lost strokes off the tee in like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But C was kind of the same way. He hits a lot of fairways. He drove it pretty well. And at the end of the day, he ended up getting the win. So, good for him. It's a little unfortunate because he's kind of our little mascot on our show. We love to bet him. Neither of us were on him this week. I think because we bought in a little too much on the, hey, guys who play Century tend to win this thing.
Yep.
Of course they got broken. So,
yeah,
but it was good to see him win. But overall, though, I think Buckley played fine. I have high hopes for him this year. I think at some point he'll probably break through for a win. Maybe not this year, but maybe in the fall swing next year.
Yeah, I agree. Justin made a point there about some of the putting. Look, I actually think so he had a couple of opportunities around the green, which I want to get to in a moment. Basically right on the fringe where he got in 3 from right around the fringe. You got to get those in 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually really impressed. He kept his rhythm. He did not seem rattled one bit in any circumstance. He made big bounce back putts for birdie, and like Siwoo Kim just goes for it. I mean, there were a couple situations when he was in the rough where he had to carry it over a bunker. And I think the commentators were just talking like he's just going to try to lay this up and do something safe. He doesn't do that ever.
No.
He goes for every single opportunity. So it was really kind of cool to see that pay off. Let me ask you something, Steve, and I want your sort of take on it. I'm kind of working through this take in my mind, so I want to run it by you. Is there a difference in terms of some of the stats that you may factor into a week? Do you provide more importance or emphasis on some stats in an outright betting market versus what you would in, say, a DFS or a top 40 or to make the cut market? Are you doing anything different there when you try to analyze outright bets, or is it mostly stick with the same strategy across the board for the week? If you're on point, it should work all the way around.
I think the only time I really change up the strategies is for DFS, where it's mostly for low ownership guys. Because listen, like we all have access to the same stats right now. Like if we talk about a player who is performing pretty well, we're all going to regurgitate the same stuff. For DFS, I try and get into a mindset of, okay, trying to match a guy who might be down on his luck right now to the course. So that might just show up in the actual stat sheet where he's, hitting his irons pretty poorly. But I know when he goes to more of a shorter track, more, maybe a grass that he's more familiar with, that might be where he pops up. So then you can, get leverage on everybody and maybe he ends up working out for you. But in outrights and betting, though, I tend to just kind of focus on, okay, these stats are important. Tend to be a little safer with some of those bets as far as and I've been pretty formulaic with some of my betting cards, especially with the outright market. We've talked about it back and forth. I think we talked about it last fall, where it seems like ever since, the live guys exited, it really ate away a lot of the middle class, and where the odds are right now, it just seems like, the guys who are now 60, 70, 80 to 1, realistically, like with their talent level, they should be more like 100, 120 to 1.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're seeing, and we saw again last week, it hit, Siwoo Kim 45 to 1. Those types of guys really are just more of a cut above, kind of the new middle and bottom tier. So, that's basically where I'm living as far as like structuring my betting card. And, I don't really change with the stats. I just kind of look at it. But for DFS though, I think you have to think a little more outside the box for sure.
Yeah.
Because, it's golf, it's unpredictable, and you have to get leverage on everybody in the contest. And that's the easiest way I think to do is kind of think about, okay, where has this guy been kind of good at before, even if he's done on your luck. That's where you kind of change the strategy, at least for me.
Yeah, I think totally. So what I've been kind of starting to chart and work through a little bit. So I think the end all be all in DFS and the stat that everyone's going to point to in terms of most indicative is strokes gained approach or ball striking, one of the two, right? I feel like every week when you pull up the data golf, the little like pentagon that they have in terms of like what's important.
Yeah.
Around the green game is always ranked very low in terms of correlation to success. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't put enough emphasis on it. And I feel like that makes sense. It's somewhat unpredictable. And it makes sense, I guess, in a DFS format when you need to get 6 of 6 guys through, when you're looking at a really broader perspective of guys you think can finish 15th or 10th this week. But I think there's something too that when it comes to outright bets, around the green game, I think, is more important in an outright bet market than anything else. It really is indicative of who ends up hoisting the trophy more times than not. And I thought about it last week a little bit. I mean, like Colin was a great play last week. He made you money in DFS. He made you money in top 5, top 10. He was underpriced. He outperformed his expectation. But he lost that tournament because he couldn't chip or pitch around the green. And that's where John Rahm was really able to take success. I was trying to pull up the stats, but I know Rahm gained like 2 around the green. In the same situation with Siwoo yesterday. I mean, just being able to chip in on 17, he's fantastic around the green. And players like that, when they find themselves into contention, ultimately there's situations within that back 9 where they have to get themselves up and down from sometimes a precarious situation, sometimes just a normal situation, but is so much more meaningful in the spot. Like that Hayden Buckley up and down on 18 that he needed on Wednesday, he probably gets that up and down 80% of the time. On Sunday, when the tournament's on the line, it becomes much more difficult. So I think that I'm going to start maybe shifting a little bit more toward around the greens when I'm specifically looking at who can capture an outright win. Because when we go out and play on Saturday, Steve, everyone says your short game is so important. I think that really carries true and rings true more so on the PGA Tour than sometimes we maybe give that credit for.
Well, I mean, that's the point I was actually about to make, is that, like, you take guys who want to be low handicap amateurs, and if you talk to scratch golfers, one of the things they tell you to work on is work on your short games, because you save strokes. And that's a great point. Is, listen, like, if you want to have a lot of top 10 finishes, a lot of top 20 finishes in the PGA Tour, be a good ball striker, be able to roll the rock a little bit. But if you really want to get that win, it comes down to, I mean, you see it every week. It comes down to one shot here, one shot there. We saw with Siwoo Kim, he chipped in on 17. Really, just the short game is kind of the difference maker. As far as like handicapping for tournament, I agree. I mean, statistically, at least with how strokes gain work, it is the area that you tend to either not separate yourself from the field as much, or you just don't gain as much of the field.
Right.
But for me, I usually like leaning on it when I know that it's very difficult greens to hit, usually when there's a low green regulation rate. Typically, though, when it's like a birdie fest, there's a higher green regulation rate. At that point, if you need to actually, get a lot of birdie opportunities, if you're not a good iron player, but you're really good around the green, it's good for making pars, but you're going to, lag behind. But there's definitely certain situations where, at least just in crunch time, short game definitely does matter. So, I agree with that sentiment.
Cool. Let's talk a little AMEX.
Okay.
3-course rotation, 2 of them shot trackerless. Pro-Am format, long rounds. We know about it. Accessible pins, slower greens. We know what John Rahm thinks about this tournament. I'll be frank. I have no problem if, and I say this about maybe 1 or 2 events of the schedule, if they eliminate this event and we never see it again, I would be just fine with it. It's annoying. It's hard to follow. It's hard to bet. There's long shots. I'm frankly very surprised that this many of the top players signed up for this thing, knowing that they have Torrey next week, knowing that it's not elevated status. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's probably has to do with American Express.
Okay.
I think they probably. I mean, I know there's not officially any appearance fees. I'm gonna guess. I think there's actually they might have some sponsorship deals with some of these guys, and maybe the arrangement is, hey, like we'll sponsor you, but you got to show up to the AMEX because you're right. Like this used to be one of the bigger events when it was the Bob Hope Classic. You had Bob Hope going out there, doing his shtick. But now it's an afterthought. This used to be the tournament where most celebrities lived out in Palm Springs, and now they live out in LA. So there's really no reason to go out there unless you want like a nice spa day or something. I agree with you though. Like this is one where like I wrote up 2,600 words. And I still am having a hard time kind of figuring out like exactly what I want this week because each course kind of is a little bit different and values some different things. Like you just mentioned on Data Golf, some of those relative skill set charts. It seems like 3 of the 4 rounds on Nicholas and the Stadium course,
right,
tends to favor longer hitters. At the Nicholas course, you had to be a little more accurate too. But what's weird though is with the Stadium course, I mean, the driving distances on all drives on par 4s and 5s is one of the lowest on the PGA Tour. There's a lot of forced layups with the Pete Dye design. That's kind of what he tries to go for, where it's a little more important to hit the correct side of the fairway to get the angle into the green. Otherwise, you have to carry over a bunker, or a lot of these greens on the Stadium course are very long and narrow. So if you're on the wrong side of the fairway, it's going to be hard to hit the green there. But on Nicholas, though, it's kind of like a watered down version of the Stadium course. Everything's really right on front. It's still got the mogul mounds, it's still got the dormant Bermuda. That's another thing I think I really don't like with this tournament too, is that, like, it just looks bad. We're coming off Hawaii, look at the ocean and all the great drone shots above Honolulu and Maui. It was great. And now we're going to just kind of a ugly, overseeded, antiquated kind of golf course where I don't really find all the compelling, and we only have shot link at one place, Stadium course.
Yeah. The
Nicholas course is kind of a watered down version of the Stadium course. Everything's kind of right on front of you. It's pretty wide fairways. That's a little more driver heavy. And then La Quinta, I don't understand why they still go there because that is completely an outdated golf course. Pretty much everything off the tee is carried. By all the professionals. Like driving kind of just doesn't matter there. And that's why everybody goes low. It's really about, okay, I'm going to set up a really nice short iron into a green, try and make the putt. And that's what makes it difficult too. Like that's why John Rahm say he doesn't really like this tournament, even though he's a former winner. It kind of comes down to just putting. So that's always tough to handicap. It's tough also because you don't have a lot of data on Nicholas and La Quinta. You kind of have to guess. I'm just going to go under the assumption just based on, how I think you attack the Nicholas course is you can hit driver a lot there. It's not a long golf course, probably a lot of shorter approach shots. Same thing at La Quinta. We have the approach shot distribution chart on the Stadium course. So I'm leaning, basically shots under 150, maybe a little bit on 150, 175, because that is something that's above average at the Stadium course. You get 2 rounds there. On par 5 scoring, they're very reachable, all these par 5s.
Very.
And that tends to favor a little bit of a longer hitter if you can get there in 2. But yeah, like it's definitely not one of my favorite tournaments. There's a lot of things about the Stadium course in particular that kind of rips off Sawgrass for sure. Yeah. I pointed that in my column. There's also that stupid bunker on the left of 16 that the PGA Tour just loves to have clickbait on. And
they do.
I don't know. It's one where either I've hit Siwoo here, but I think last year got just wrecked with my betting card. So it'll be interesting to see. I have some uncomfortable picks, a lot of dicey picks, but we'll see what happens.
So as I pull up the odds board here, there's not much of a different 5 winners in terms of skill set and profile than you can get from the last 5 here. Swaff Daddy last year, Siwoo you mentioned the year before, Andrew Landry, Adam Long, who I think like Phil was in that playoff with Adam Long, and then John Rahm. And of course, Patrick Cantlay always plays well here. So a little from the top, but it's all over the place. As I bring in the odds board this week, I'm just going to kind of read through the top of the board here, Steve. Rahm is plus 650. Wow. Cantlay right behind him. Scheffler, Finau, Zalatoris. Finau is the last one under 20-1. Then you have Zalatoris at 20. Xander at 20-1, Cameron Young at 22, Sungjae Im right there at 25-1 is the best number available there. Have you made any plays on the top of the board?
Yeah, so it's the last two guys you mentioned, and those are kind of a little more my own comfortable picks for this week, just especially with Sungjae, just because that was disastrous at Waialae. So I was hoping let's start with Sungjae first. That was somebody I was hoping to see a 3 in front of. I thought because it was right out in front of you. Last week he was terrible off the tee. He could not find fairways. He was constantly in trouble in the rough. And he hit his, statistically his pro shots were also awful too. But I think with how bad he was driving the ball at Waialae, he was just setting himself up to compound more errors because, they purposely grew up the rough at Waialae to make it tougher. And you saw it, like anybody who was missing fairways, it was really dicey. And, if you find yourself in that rough, you're probably not going to hit a good approach shot. And that's going to show up in the stats too. So I think it started right there from him. It seemed like when I was watching PGA Tour live, that seemed to be, he just was shooting himself in the foot, right off the jump. When he had approach shots into the green, it seemed he was okay. I didn't see anything too loose other than maybe like there was a couple I think he left in a bunker. But overall, I thought if he was actually driving it okay, he was relatively fine. So now he's going to come to PGA West. A lot of success here. He's got a top 10 here 3 years ago. He's T12 last year. I remember in 2021, I think he was like leading into the weekend. And he did something really dumb. We actually came up on our show. We nicknamed him Knucklehead after this. I think he left it in a bunker and he had like 220 out over water. He tried to hit a hybrid to the green and of course it went in the water.
Yeah.
So he made some dumb decisions that weekend, but his performance at this golf course is pretty good. You also look, if you want to take the agronomy angle too, a lot of good success on some of these other overseeded golf courses too, like Valspar, Heritage. He's had some good success. I think he has a top 10 at Phoenix as well. That's another angle if you want to go towards as far as like, the agronomy takes for the overseas golf course. I listed in my column this week. He has some good success there too. If you want to go by, I mentioned Harbor Town as well. That's a peat dye, but it's kind of a watered down peat dye, kind of like this place as well.
Sure.
So I like the bounce back this week. I thought 25. I wish it was a little better on him, but I was able to fit that in my betting card because, I just basically I took some guys a little lower down the board too, so I fit him there. And then Cam Young. So I bet him as well. There was a brief moment. There was a 28 on him. And I took that. I just felt, he's a really good player. He's going to win eventually. He has had good performances on some golf courses where, shorter iron's been a little, pretty important. Like, he finished third place at Harbor Town. The driver is taken out of his hands that week. He still played very well. Southern Hills at the PGA Championship, a lot of shorter approach shots that week. Or St. Andrews, a lot of wedges into a lot of those greens. And he also has, he's been really good at different sets of golf courses. Like I've seen really good on some really difficult tracks, be really good on some easy tracks. So with this course rotation, I kind of like having a guy that I know is pretty adaptable to different situations. And I just think he's a really talented player. I know he can get hot and pour a lot of birdies on. The putter can be a little dicey sometimes. But, if he's stuffing his wedges and short irons pretty close, he's great on the par fives too. As long as, he's not getting too much trouble off the tee, I kind of like him this week. I like getting 28 to 1 on him. So those are my two guys at the top of the board.
Yeah, I think Sungjae, you make a great case for a bounce back week. Cam Young's an interesting one for me because, I didn't necessarily love what I saw at the Century, but I didn't hate it either. It was a good attempt to shake a little rust off. Part of me wonders, like, how much emphasis do you put into, like, are you totally overthinking of it by going down the rabbit hole of, is this guy going to be is he going to hate playing with two amateurs like for 6-hour rounds? And I kind of think Cameron Young might be one of those guys like a Patrick Cantlay where the two amateurs are like, let's just leave this guy the hell alone. Like he looks mean. He looks angry. I don't want to talk to him. Let's leave him alone and let him do his thing. So maybe he'll be out there playing pretty well. The one guy, I guess, at the top of the board that has my attention, I haven't bet anyone yet. I didn't love any of the numbers by the time I got to them. I'm considering Xander, and I don't know why, Steve, but Data Golf has him as projected the best win percentage. That's not factoring in injury. But I have to believe, why do you sign up for 3 days of 6-hour rounds before Torrey? I'll have to look more into that angle of, does he have connections and getting paid by American Express just to be here? But it was just interesting to me, the fact that he's playing this week. I did talk to Andy, who's talked to the caddy and says that it's all systems go, that he's sore, but he's going to give it a go, and he has no intentions of withdrawing. I think that's probably the case for him 2 weeks ago. Worries there, but I do feel like, should he be healthy, like, beware always overthinking the injured golfer that we get into. If he's there and he's competing and he's okay, I think 20-1 presents maybe the best number on this board.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even 20-1 last year, like in a lot of tournaments. Like, what was he at, like 14-1 at Travelers or something?
Yep.
Like 16 maybe at Scottish Open. Yeah, it's not often we see 20s on non-major events for Xander. And I mean, look, like, I kind of made the mention with Cam Young, where Xander's a great all-around player that feels like he's very adaptable in different situations because he's so good and so well-rounded, kind of like a Patrick Cantlay. I think that's why he's pretty good in these types of formats. And Xander's got a lot of really good success on some overseas tracks as well. You think about Phoenix, same agronomy. I think he has a top 10 at Valspar as well. Same agronomy there too. So yeah, there's a lot of things to like about Xander. The issue is, is he going to be healthy?
Right.
Maybe he'll make a comment when he goes to the media, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. But if you're somebody who wants to be a little risky with your outright card, I mean, it's 20-1. How risky is it? But there is the question of, is he healthy? 20-1 on a healthy Xander at this golf course is a really good number if you want to take that risk. So I think that's perfectly fine. And listen, it's golf. We don't have Adam Schefter's. We don't have Ian Rappaport's. There's a lot of unknowns. Sometimes even the stats that we look at, it could be complete bullshit, at the end of the day. So, I think if you're somebody who wants to take a stand on him this week, I think from a player profile standpoint, he's excellent for this place.
Okay, this middle range, this is where it gets kind of interesting. I'm just going to kind of open this thing up. I'll read off some names, but you have Tom Kim, Sam Burns, right there at around the 25 and 35-1 mark. Then you get an interesting group in basically starting at 40-1. Harmon, Hoagie, Siwoo attempting back-to-back, Montgomery, Wise, Davis, Putnam, Thigala, Hadwin, all names that I've heard already dropped a couple times this week. Anything in the midsection here for you that's got your attention?
Yeah, I mean, this was one where I went shopping for pricing here because there are a lot of guys I like here. So it kind of came down to, can I spin a narrative that I like, that I think could have a path to success to win this thing, and then kind of get a good number on him. So yeah, so the rest of my betting card is in this range. It's just that I got decent numbers because I got in a little early. And then for, we'll talk about long shots, but my philosophy just with this new PGA Tour, like, if I miss out on the 100-1, 150-1, that's okay. I can live myself. I'm probably gonna have a positional or be somewhere close around that anyway. So, so let's just talk about this race as far as right. So Hoagie, I found a 50-1 on him. Just been hitting really good since all the way going back to, basically the Scottish Open last July. He hasn't had a single tournament where he's lost strokes with his pro shots. I mean, listen, I think he's perfect for this type of tournament where, a lot of shorter approach shots. He's really elite from under 150. Good score from that range too. What concerns me a little bit, he hasn't been driving the ball all that great recently. Maybe if you go to the stadium course, that's a golf course where you can keep the driver in the bag because you kind of got to plot around. La Quinta, it doesn't seem like anybody is really affected. You're just a tour player and there's no real adversity off the tee. So I'm not worried about him there. I guess I'm worried about a little bit of Nicholas Tournament because you do have to hit the driver a little more there. But overall, listen, he finished second there last year. I know he can get the job done at a Pro-Am because he won Pebble Beach a couple weeks after that. And I just like the solid play. He played really well. Hitting the ball really good last week at Waialae. I also saw that I think 8 of the last 10 winners of the AMEX played the Sony. So I wanted to try and get some guys that hit the ball well at Sony. Maybe didn't putt all that great and try to get him here. Now, if you look back at who's won here, I mean, Andrew Landry missed 5 straight cuts. Hudson Swaffer wasn't really doing anything. Adam Long at the same thing too. So, I mean, who knows? It makes me sleep better at night knowing that I'm on that narrative. But I like how he's playing. I like his fit for this golf course. So, I went with 50 to 1 on him. I took a 55 to 1 on Cam Davis too. That kind of fits a little bit what Data Golf is suggesting with the stadium course, where longer guys are pretty good around the green, tend to do well here. I'm surprised he hasn't been more in the mix at a lot of these tournaments. So if you go back the last 2 years, this is a stat I really like looking at, just especially with outrights. Who's in the mix? Because sometimes the final leaderboard doesn't really explain the whole story. But if I see that you're after 54 holes, you're within 5 of the lead, you're within shouting distance, I note that. And for Cam Davis, though, it's only been twice over the last 2 years, and he's really good in a lot of his strokes gained statistics. He's really solid in it, but there's not many times I can really remember him actually in the mix fighting for a win. So that's a little, that's a little concerning. But I think his overall game, the fact that he's pretty long off the tee, really good with his shorter irons too, pretty good scrambler, decent putter as well. Hit the ball pretty good last week. Had a decent final round as well. Maybe that can carry some momentum to be good here. I think he has a 3rd place finish here as well. So I like that. And then JT Poston. Again, going back to last year, I think he's only lost strokes to the field with his approach, I think in 5 of 23 tournaments, which is surprising for Poston because I generally think of him kind of more like a Denny McCarthy type, where maybe not as strong with the irons, but he's just a good scrambler, good putter, but it's kind of turned around in him where he's hitting his irons pretty good, going back all the way, pretty much to last summer. The putter hasn't been all that good. But if you go back and look at some of his performances on overseeded golf courses, a lot of success there. Harbor Town, Valspar, Phoenix, he's been really good at. He's putt really well at a lot of these places too. Also did really well at the Travelers last year, kind of like a little bit watered down Pete Dye design, kind of like what we're going to see at least at the stadium course here. So I got him at 90 to 1. I know he's like 60 to 1, 50 to 1, some books. But, I think it comes down to this, but I like a Taylor Montgomery. I like, Hadwin's always really good here. Cage Lee might be interesting too. I think it kind of depends on this range. There's a lot of guys you like. Maybe go with just price shop a little bit, like you see here with Odds Checker, and that'd be your guys. But those are the 3 I landed on. I can at least spin a narrative. I also like Sahith. I don't know if I've been talking for a while, so maybe I'll push it back to you. But I like Sahith. Unfortunately, I saw something today that took me off him. But
tell me.
There's certain people that pick him that
got it.
That
I'm not concerned with that. I'll step in front of it. I took
Okay.
Sahith.
Okay.
So Sahith and Cam Davis are my guys. You made great points on Cam Davis. Sahith, I think just 2 young players that are coming to this thing hungry, looking to win, who I think possess this skill off the tee and around the green. Both are really, really solid around the greens. I think Sahith is picking up confidence with the putting. Cam Davis is a little hit or miss, but those 2 guys. And then what I think I'm going to do, so I mentioned Xander, but my other option is pivoting to 2 more guys in this range, which I think I'm going to do. I like Taylor Montgomery if I'm just going to go the young kid narrative, who are just super hungry for an early season win. And then Tom Hoge, the more I dive into it, I forget what you mentioned, about being a Pro-Am winner. I totally forgot about that, and that may be enough to put me over the edge. But, I was looking into, so they released a head-to-head matchup today, Siwoo versus Tom Hoge. Straight even odds, -110 tournament matchups, which I've really been trying to hone in and sharpen my skills on a little bit more, which I found interesting because while priced nearly the same in sort of betting formats, they're drastically different priced in DraftKings. So Siwoo's almost, I believe, $800 more expensive. So I'm always looking for guys who have an even betting line, who are the same odds to win, who have basically an even head-to-head line, but they're $800 off in DraftKings. Something's to look at there. And as I dove more into how fantastic Siwoo's been as an iron player, number 2 in recently, I believe in the last 16 to 20 rounds in strokes gained approach. The only guy ahead of him is Tom Hoge. So he's just been fantastic. The under 7,200 yards. I think I like both of those kids there. And then Sahith and Cam Davis are 2 that I already have in.
Okay. I mean, so I'll explain why I like Sahith this week for anybody who's not a superstitious, crazy person like me. I've seen enough evidence from him where, listen, he's really volatile, and I think that's why he doesn't look very good in some of the stats categories. I was looking, I think at projection ownership, it's dirt low, and it's because like if you do a model, listen, he has terrible iron weeks sometimes. He has terrible putting weeks sometimes. He's awful off the tee. He can't find a fairway. But there's those magical weeks too, where second to RSM. We saw last year at Overseas Golf Course in Phoenix. Almost won that. He finished, I think, top 10 at Valspar, another Overseas Golf Course. There's also a lot of guys here too that have been like weirdly good at Memorial and been good here. I mean, I know back in 2016, the first year that they had Statement Course, it was Lingmerth versus Duffner in the playoff. Both Memorial champions. You got John Rahm, obviously really good at the Memorial. Patrick Cantlay, really good at the Memorial. Si Woo Kim, also decent at the Memorial as well. Sung J M finished, he's good here, finished top 10 at the Memorial too. Maybe it's because of the Nicklaus tournament course. Maybe that might be a little bit help explain it. But, so he finished top 10 there as well. Like, listen, he's a good player. We've seen him have huge weeks and just unfortunately doesn't really work out for him as well. Like we saw the Travelers, another Pete Dye golf course. So, I like him a lot this week. I thought the number on him was pretty good. If you want to go with him, I think you can make a great case for it. A guy who can pile up birdies in a hurry. Now, if he can put together for 4 rounds, we'll see. I think you're going to know immediately too if you got something because usually with Sahith, it's either all right, birdies for the first 7 holes, or he's +3 after 6.
Yep. So you're right. Extremely volatile. 60-1, though, the best number available over at DraftKings right now. The rest of the board, and we've seen these guys sort of hit. I'm going to save my long shots for a little video I'm going to put out tomorrow. I know you mentioned you don't really love betting these guys and you're kind of adjusting that strategy. Give me one guy who maybe you like as a top 10 or top 20 bet that's in this triple digits on the outright odds board.
Okay. I got a funny feeling Harris English is going to show well this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great first round last week. I mean, we've seen kind of hints of him starting to put it together. We saw a little bit last fall. He finished top 10 at Fortinet, had 3 really good rounds, I think, at Houston before he fell down the leaderboard. I think he was first round leader at Mayakoba, got off to a good start last week in Waialae that fell apart with him. He's been okay here. I think a lot of this, I think he's been a little better, some of his older stuff than recently. But, I mean, he did win Travelers. Some similarities there to this place. And I just think that he, for 100-1, for a guy that not too long ago before the injury was a Ryder Cup player. He was a top 15, at least U.S. player, top 30 player on the PGA Tour at least. Is he washed up? I don't know, but I've seen enough glimpses to at least give me some hope that he still has a little something to him. And he fits the profile of just, whoa, where did that come from, guy? Like, finishing like 68th last week. None of the stats are really good. And then he just ends up popping up and winning this week. Same thing with like a Christian Bezadenhout as well. Like he was awful last week, but if you look at what he's good at, pretty good under 150. You're going to get a lot of that this week. Really good putter on overseed as well. And that could be someone I could just see just draining birdies all day long. Maybe finds a little bit more form with the irons. I mean, he's had some pretty bad results on the PGA Tour recently, but he finished 3rd over in the European Tour, I think in the South African Open. He played okay, I think, at like Shriners and Fortinet, one of those garbage tournaments. He's been, we're not that far removed from like an acceptable, like, okay. Like he used to be kind of like an automatic top 40 player. He was kind of just that, but I can see him, just being a type of guy that kind of just starts draining a bunch of birdies, draining a bunch of putts. And he does have some pedigree to him too. So that could be somebody I could see kind of coming out of nowhere this week as far as like a winner. Otherwise though, like there's a lot of Corn Ferry guys that I've been kind of keen on. Like, I think I'm starting to get like my little player pool of like those graduates, like, Will Gordon, a Ben Griffin, Ben On, played great last week. Shockingly with the putter, by the way. I didn't know where that came from, but he's been pretty hit or miss, but he's been pretty good. Kind of like with Sung J M, a lot of really good results on overseas tracks and pretty good results here too. Ben Taylor, Kevin Yu, Carl Yuan. I think there's a lot to like with some of those guys. Those are guys I'm looking at for like a top 40 price. And then just some other guys down the card too. Matthew Neesmith. I don't think we've seen him since last year's RSM where he was terrible. But before that, he had 3 straight top 10s. Did well to Shriners. He's got some decent finishes at like Phoenix. I think he's got a couple of good finishes at Valero as well. Those are both overseeded tracks. He might be interesting. Nate Lashley kind of popped his head up last week. He hit the ball really good tee to green. He should have won Pebble Beach, I think, the year that who won that?
Berger?
Berger. Yeah. Lashley, I think, had like a 5 foot for birdie to tie Berger, and he missed it. But he randomly popped up. That could be a long shot winner. Bo Hostler might be an option. I mean, long hitter who can, scramble and putt.
Yes.
Maybe he gets hot too. Again, he played really well at Pebble last year. That could be somebody you could look to as well. So I think that you got some, if you really want to go dumpster diving, for some, triple, like high triple, digit options, I kind of like those guys. I feel like, it's kind of close your eyes. There's definitely some ugly things about them, but I kind of like those guys to maybe get an unexpected win.
Yeah, you're going to need him to fill out some lineups. You made a good point that I think some of the odds on those guys that would normally be 200 to 1 are now kind of cut to 150 or 125, just given the way things are on a trajectory right now. You made a ton of awesome points, dude. You were always super well informed and prepared, and I appreciate your time. Tell everyone where you can find you and BC this week. What time?
Yeah. So we're gonna be recording our DFS show right after this, so it's gonna be a very late night for me. I was not feeling so great this morning. I had one too many drinks during the Giants game, so it's a long day for your boy. But I'm happy to be here talking golf with you. But you can find us at the Golf Gambling Podcast. We do 3 shows a week. Sunday usually our preview, Monday DFS, Tuesday betting show. During major seasons, we might have like a special one-off episode, maybe like a cut sweat show on Friday. You can find my columns on sportsgamblingpodcast.com. I put up my preview on Sunday. We also do a one and done column that comes out on Tuesday. And then we have our newest edition, Matt Gannon. He writes a bunch of stuff for us. He does a lot of great stuff. He writes DFS column, picks column. He puts out a narratives column too, kind of like what I mentioned with Xander. He takes pertinent quotes. I'm sure he'll probably include a Xander quote this week that we can dissect, and then like a Friday weekend bet show. So we're cranking out the content at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Come join us. Come join our Discord channel too. We love having you guys in there talking golf, throwing bets around. And we, anyone's welcome. So, but Joe, pleasure to have you or to come on the show. And thanks, appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Matt Gannon, one of the hardest working guys. He never stops right now, and you and Boston Capper are probably one of the most entertaining duos out there talking golf. So, Steve Shermer, thanks a lot for coming on the pod. Appreciate you, bud.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for checking out the show. Good luck at the AMEX this week. Good luck in life. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Best of luck. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.